What's up everybody, Eduardo Talbert here. This is Monster Tutorials. Well, I just got home from work, as you can see. I even have my blue shoes with my horse socks. And I was walking down the path looking at my landscape. Now that is the first day of spring, right? And we made the concrete skulls last year in July. So it's been like 9 months since then. And I went to look for them to see how they've aged in these 9 months. They've been out there in the sun, rain, everything. Well, to my surprise, once I moved the leaves out of the way, they looked brand new still. Look at that. It's like I made them yesterday. There's not even bird poop on these. So I brought them in and I decided that I wanted to age them manually then, since obviously those 9 months didn't do much for them. I want them to look stained, kind of like from like rain or acid rain, and also have some moss growing on them. So I started practicing on one of them that I had here indoors hanging on the wall, this one with a hook, and that's what it looks like. Fix that light. So that's what I'm going to do for this guy in today's tutorial. So let's get started. Right. I'm going to start with this one for demonstration purposes, but I'm going to do the same to the other skull as well. So find yourself a ton, and I mean all kinds, of green paint. Those green paints and these green paints, they were on sale for like $1 each. Some glue, just regular school glue. You also need some black paint and dark brown paint. And the last thing is I had done this just with paint. And it looked kind of cool, but the texture was off. These are real smooth, and when you paint it green, it just looks like a green spot. So I want it to look like real moss. See that texture there and there in the nose? Well, for that, I tried something I saw on Pinterest using lint from your dryer. And it was a mess. It did not look good at all for me. Whoever did on Pinterest looked awesome. They did on some tombstones and everything. I could not get it to work. So I started like racking my brain. And I ended up getting some sand. So we're going to use sand for that texture. And this can be used on any cement thing. So if you have a cement planter or a cement whatever statue and you want it to look old, you can do this. And at the end we'll figure out how to weather seal it with some polyurethane or something like that, so that you can leave it outside and still will protect that finish that you work so hard on. For this first step, if you use stain on this, dry like this, it's going to soak it right in. So if you put a dot of black paint right here, it'll suck it right in and you'll have a dot. It won't spread. You'll get it wet with one of these bottle sprayers. See how it absorbs it right away? So we need to have it a little bit moist. Alright, once it's nice and wet, we're going to take one of these cheap chip brushes, and we're going to mix a little bit of water and black paint here to make a little bit of a stain. If you want a more organic color, you can add a little bit of brown or any color you want to stain the concrete. You mix this up real good. Alright, once you have it nice and mixed, we're just going to start staining the whole skull. Make sure that the water runs so it doesn't get stuck in one spot. The advantage of making it really wet is that it mimics the flow of rain. So this is how it would age naturally. So it doesn't have like brush strokes on it. You'll see the color puddles in some areas, and that's where it would naturally puddle. So I would like leave it there. I'm just trying to get rid of some of the brush strokes I left there by dabbing it with a brush like this. Alright, that's the first step. This guy's going to sit and dry right here. While that dries, let's do this dude right here. This one, we're going to try the other technique, which is we're going to paint like this and then just brush off the high points. So let's say this eye, but let's take off this high little area right here. Let the rest get stained. Like the nose, but the bridge will highlight it. Let that dry. Right, this guy's dry. It took a nice color. It has some dark spots, as you can see here in the eyes where it puddled and in between the teeth. So it made all the features come out, even the cracks right here on the head. So now let's do the moss. Alright, for this part, let's get some school glue. And whichever green paints that you want. So maybe a little bit of this one, a bit of that one, some of that as well, and a little bit of brown. This is just raw umber, which is just like a dark, very organic brown. Now we're going to take a little bit of glue and mix it with a little bit of paint. Okay, then a little bit of glue over here with this paint right here, and some of the green with this glue right here. One thing I like to do is we're going to decide where you want the moss. So I'm going to do the inside of the eyes on top, maybe a little bit here on the forehead, and maybe down the side of the face right here. So I like to do a tiny little base of like this brown. And all I'm doing is just dabbing a little circle where the moss is going to go in this brown. Almost as if the edges of the moss have died and they have turned brown. I'm just dabbing it, don't brush it, so it looks like it has spots of brown. So that is brown in there. I'm going to do the same right here, the big spot on the forehead, and all this that we wanted to do here. Maybe the bottom of the teeth right here. Alright, so it has some brown spots. Now for the moss, I start first with just paint. And just almost like a dry brush. And just dab inside of the brown, where you want the edges of the moss to be. And mix up the greens just a little bit. This lighter green that you see there, right, so this one almost looks like lichen. So you can have it come out and mix it up with a little bit of this other green. Now for the texture, we're going to take some sand. We're just going to grab a little pinch of sand and okay, now seriously, put some sand in the paint, in each one of the puddles of paint. And mix it up until you have a little bit of a paste like this. Okay, you take a tiny little bit of the paste and just put it where you want the moss to be. And with the brush you're going to tap it down, and that's what gives it that perfect moss texture. And take it to the edges as much as you can. Now we're going to let that spot dry all the way, and then we're going to highlight it with the other greens. So while that one dries, let's do the other spots. So now just spread it out. And this stippling action makes the sand stick out and look like the texture of moss. Right, I'm going to do the inside of the eyes the same way. That's where the school glue comes in. It helps hold all this together. I'm also doing some moss around the teeth, but I am wiping the outside off so it stays in between the teeth. I'm going to continue doing that all around the skull in all the different areas where you want to have moss. And that is up to you. I don't even know where moss grows, so I'm guessing it'll be in the recessed areas. So go in there. That is perfect right there. So, and then just push it into the crevices and get that nice texture. That looks awesome. I'm going to let that dry and then we're going to highlight it with the other colors. Alright, some of these spots are nice and set. They're not totally dry, but they're much drier than they were. So I just mixed sand with this lighter color. And we're basically, it's more of a dry brush, but it still has sand. And just highlight just lightly the spots you made. There's the highlights with the lighter. You can leave it like that, but what I like to do is to just keep dry brushing different shades of green so that the different mosses stand out. And some colors will be very bright, depending what kind of moss you have, and some will be more subtle and dark. So it's up to you how dark or light do you want it. So this one right now has the two shades of the more yellowish moss. I think it looks cool. I need to add the highlights here inside the eye sockets and inside of the nose. And I think this guy's ready. See the eye much lighter. Now let's do this one. See that? See the texture too? Starting to look like moss, like the little florets or the little tiny little plants that the moss is made out of. I'm going to let this dry. And when it dries, it changes a little bit of color. So if it's still too muted, I can go and put some of the brighter colors in. But if it's not, if it's like I like it, what we'll do is we'll just go in the garage and spray it with the polyurethane. I'm going to spray this one too. And this guy still needs the moss treatment, so I'll be adding moss to this guy while this guy dries. On this one, I'm just putting moss all around it. So I'm just varying the colors and just, dabbing it in there. This will be like one of those pieces of concrete or cement that are totally covered in moss, as opposed to this one that has some spots. Alright, these dudes are done. I'm gonna go grab that polyurethane. So for the skulls, I'm gonna use one of these, it's called Rust-Oleum triple thick polyurethane. So one spray equals 3 of a regular can, or so they say. This one's clear satin and this one is clear gloss. I'm gonna go with the satin because I don't want the skulls to be shiny. So I'll see you in a minute. I'm going to the garage and I'll show you the final product. Alright, so I finished spraying these guys. One word of caution, make sure that your skulls, since we soak them with water, that they're totally dry, because if you spray with polyurethane and the water tries to come out, it will just start, it'll mess it all up, okay? So I let these guys dry thoroughly all the way, and then I spray them with polyurethane. I'm gonna go put these outside. I'll see how they hold up. I'm not going anywhere, so if they turn crappy in 6 months, I'll let you know and say, hey, these guys turned crappy. But for now, you just added about 300 years worth of aging, right, and weathering. So if you like this tutorial, give it a thumbs up, share it if you feel like you should share it, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't. We have a few vlogs coming up, and one big tutorial which is going to be a scarecrow that we're going to make. It's going to be a really cool one, so I will see you next time.